Belgian Congo, the hidden history of children's resistance. Imagine a world where every step you take is dictated by someone else, a world where your dignity is nothing but an illusion and where fear becomes the daily rhythm of your life. Welcome to the Belgian Congo in the 1950s. An old photograph shows a Belgian colonist being carried on a stretcher, supported by Congolese porters. At first glance, it seems like a simple image, but behind this picture lies a reality filled with pain, fear, and silent resistance. In a small village by the river, the inhabitants live under the watchful eye of the colonial authorities. Every day, men, women, and even teenagers are forced into labor. The rubber harvested from the forest is never enough to meet the quotas imposed by Brussels in Leopold II, and those who fail pay with their lives. Among them, a young girl named Yema watches in silence. Her eyes follow the porters, who, under the weight of the colonist, move forward with difficulty. Every drop of sweat on their foreheads, every labored breath tells the story of a humiliated yet living people. Yema recalls the stories her father told, whispered by the fireside, where anonymous villagers bravely defied fear to protect their community. She feels a quiet anger in her heart, a fire that refuses to die out. Even today, the forest echoes with suffering, muffled screams, blows, and sometimes the heavy silence of those who have nothing left to lose. But Yema is not alone. Other children in the village share her glances, her whispers, her silent rebellion. Together, they watch, learn, and begin to understand that the memory of their people is more powerful than the chains imposed upon them. Yema feels a new strength in her heart. Every face marked with fear, every injured arm or calloused hand tells a story of silent courage. And she knows these stories must never disappear. That day, as the porters slowly carry the colonist away on his stretcher, Yema follows their progress from the heights of the village. The children whisper to each other, exchanging glances full of defiance and curiosity. Some secretly imitate their parents' gestures, silently repeating the orders they have received, but transforming them into a form of resistance. In the distance, the cry of a man who has fallen to the ground echoes through the forest. It is a warning to all. Those who fail to meet the quotas are punished, sometimes brutally. Yema shivers, but does not look away. She feels fear everywhere, but the power of memory and courage can surpass oppression. That night, around the fire, Yema listens to the elders tell stories of their ancestors, tales of lost battles, but also of clever strategies for survival. The young girl's eyes shine in the firelight. She understands that resistance can be born from patience and observation. Sometimes, simply remembering, speaking, and passing on stories becomes an act of rebellion more powerful than violence. The next day, as the colonist leaves the village, Yema notices something curious. A small group of porters exchanging furtive signs. No one sees it, but each understands that revolt begins with invisible gestures, barely audible whispers, and exchanged glances in the shadows. Yema decides to follow this path. Every day, she observes the colonists, learns their habits, notes the moments when vigilance falters. In her mind, she begins to imagine a future where the Congolese people would no longer be reduced to slavery or silence. But the road is still long, the forest is vast, the colonists are many, and fear remains a constant companion. Yet, for the first time, Yema feels a certainty. The memory, unity, and determination of her people are invisible weapons that the colonists can never break. Days pass, and Yema never stops watching the movements of the colonists. Every morning, she sneaks into the forest, observing the convoys and noting the paths the porters take. She begins to understand their routines, the moments they stop, when the guards lower their vigilance, when blows are dealt without reason. One afternoon, as the sun reaches its zenith, Yema meets Kito, a boy slightly older than her, known for his cunning and sharp mind. Kito has witnessed several villagers punished for simple mistakes. Together, they start devising a small plan: secretly transmit messages to the villagers, discreetly help those who are exhausted or injured, and above all, preserve the memory of each act of violence. "We must remember everything," says Yema, her eyes shining. "Every name, every blow, every injustice. If we forget, they have won." Kito nods silently. Together, they become the forest's observers, noting every detail and transmitting information through secret signs: stones placed on certain trees, broken branches at specific spots, whispers behind bushes. One evening, as night falls, the porters return from the rubber camp, their shoulders broken, their hands bloody. Yema follows them silently, hidden in the shadows. They see a man, an elder porter named Munga, fall under the weight of the stretcher. The guards strike him without hesitation, laughing at his pain. Yema feels anger rise, but holds her tears. She knows an impulsive gesture could cost the whole village their lives. An idea takes root in her mind. Resistance will not come through force alone, but through intelligence, patience, and solidarity. She begins convincing a few older children and teenagers in the village to join their small network. Together, they plan to protect villagers in danger, distract the guards when a porter falls, and hide those who might be severely punished. Weeks pass, and their network grows. The signs become bolder: coded messages left in huts, small smoke signals to warn of the colonists' arrival, and secret alliances with neighboring villages. Every victory is small but precious: a porter who escapes, a portion of rubber partially protected, and a knowing glance exchanged in the forest. But fear remains. One morning, the village is awakened by the sound of drums and shouts. The colonists have discovered a small secret gathering of children trying to send a message to neighboring villagers. The guards strike everyone, and Yema must hide under a pile of leaves, her heart pounding. She watches helplessly as her friends are threatened, beaten, and humiliated. This moment marks a turning point. Yema realizes that resistance requires a greater courage than that of a simple child. She must learn to be strategic, cunning, and discreet. But she also knows that fear alone can never erase her people's determination. In the following days, Yema and her secret network become more savvy. They watch the colonists from high vantage points, note their routines, and find ways to protect the villagers, while secretly recovering some of the rubber to hide or redistribute to the hungriest families. One morning, as the sun barely pierces the trees, Yema sees a colonist catch a group of teenagers transporting a small amount of rubber in secret. A violent altercation erupts. Sticks strike bodies, screams echo through the forest. An old man from the village falls, seriously injured. Yema, trembling but determined, protects him with the other children and finds a safe passage to shelter him. That night, around the fire, Yema looks at the faces of the children, tired but determined. She understands that fear, pain, and sacrifice are part of the struggle, but she also sees something greater, a silent strength that no oppression can break. She clenches her fists and promises, "We will continue, we will survive, and one day everyone will know what we endured and what we did to protect our people." The forest is silent, but in the hearts of the children and Yema, a flame burns stronger than ever. The resistance is far from over, and every day, every action, every small gesture brings the village closer to a future where they will no longer be victims, but witnesses and actors of their people's memory and freedom. The forest is on alert. For several weeks, Yema and her network have observed the colonists preparing more aggressive patrols, seeking to crush all forms of resistance. But this time, Yema has decided it is time to strike a big quo, not with violence, but with the cunning and intelligence of the entire village. She gathers Quito and the older children. Each has a precise role: divert the colonists, protect the villagers, transmit secret messages to neighboring villages. The adults, though terrified, begin to understand that the survival and dignity of the village depend on this collective action. Towards nightfall, the plan begins. The children light small simulated fires in several parts of the forest, creating illusions of movement. Animal cries, broken branches, echoes of invisible footsteps, everything is meticulously orchestrated to confuse the colonists. Meanwhile, Yema and Quito guide a group of sick villagers and children to a secret hiding place dug beneath the roots of a large, ancient tree. Every step is dangerous. Every breath could betray their presence. The colonists approach, but fall into the trap of the diversion. Confused and tired, some abandon the pursuit. But the most perilous moment comes when an armed colonist, more vigilant than the others, discovers part of the network of hiding spots. A silent confrontation follows. Yema, trembling but determined, uses everything she has learned, diverting attention with noises, guiding the villagers to a safe path, and hiding behind trunks and vegetation. A stick narrowly misses her, but she keeps running, every breath burning in her chest. The children, courageous, participate actively. One of them, Luma, creates a bold diversion by imitating the cry of a wild animal, scaring the colonists and giving Yema time to guide the last villagers to safety. Every gesture is crucial. Every decision can save or cost a life. At dawn, as the sun begins to pierce through the branches, the village realizes it has survived the night. Despite the violence and danger, no one was captured. The villagers gather silently, watching Yema and the children. For the first time, fear is no longer absolute. A glimmer of pride and courage shines in their eyes. Yema looks around, breathless but invincible in her determination. She understands that resistance is more than a physical fight. It is memory, strategy, and solidarity. Every action they have taken, every life protected, every courageous deed becomes a spark of hope for the future. As the wind blows through the forest and the village slowly resumes its daily activities, Yema knows one thing: the struggle is far from over. But from now on, fear will no longer dictate their lives. She has planted in the hearts of the children and villagers the certainty that their memory and courage are indestructible, and that even the chains imposed by the colonists can never completely break them. The following weeks become a true test for the village. The colonists, frustrated by their inability to fully control the forest and the secret paths, increase their brutality. Every morning, blows resound, screams pierce the air, and the people begin to understand that they can rely only on themselves. Yema, now more determined and strategic than ever, decides to act with unprecedented audacity. She gathers the children and a few trusted adults and devises a plan to divert a patrol larger than usual while rescuing a group of recently captured villagers. "This time, we must be fast, silent, and precise," she whispers. "Every move counts. We cannot fail." As night falls, the forest becomes a labyrinth of signals and tricks. The children have placed branches, leaves, and stones to create false trails. The older ones use whistles and discreet cries to guide the colonists toward empty areas. Yema, Quito, and a small group infiltrate the colonists' camp to free the villagers. The tension is extreme. Every step could alert the guards. Every breath could be heard. But Yema moves forward, her heart pounding, guided by the memory of the stories her father told her. She knows this moment could change the life of her village. Inside the camp, they find exhausted men and women, tied and humiliated. The children help untie them, while Yema keeps watch over the patrols. But suddenly, a cry rings out. A colonist has discovered their presence. "Run!" Yema shouts. A frantic race through the trees begins. Sticks strike the ground, sticks fly past bodies, but thanks to their knowledge of the forest and the prepared diversions, the group manages to escape, dragging the villagers to the safety of secret hiding places.
However, the victory comes at a cost. One of the teenagers, Luma, is seriously injured. Yema, supporting him in her arms, feels a burning anger toward the colonists, but also deep sorrow. She knows the price of freedom is high, but she refuses to give in to despair. "We will continue, even for you," she whispers, holding Luma close. "Every life saved is a step toward our freedom." The next day, the entire village begins to murmur quietly. Yema and the children dared what the adults no longer imagined. Their courage inspires those once paralyzed by fear. The elders start organizing the protection of the porters, hiding the harvests, and preparing the next action with more strategy than ever. Yema understands that resistance is no longer just a daily act of survival, but a movement growing in the shadows, invisible to the colonists' eyes, but powerful in the hearts of the people. Every gesture, every detour, every simulated cry becomes a weapon. And in the silence of the forest, amidst the nocturnal sounds and shifting shadows, Yema feels a truth erupt in her mind. They are not alone. The memory, courage, and unity of their people are already more powerful than the chains imposed by the colonists. But she also knows that the challenges ahead will be even greater, and that the road to freedom is long, strewn with sacrifices, losses, and difficult choices. And yet, she is ready. She and her network of young resistors are ready to do whatever it takes to protect their people and pass on their story to future generations. As the sun rises over the village, Yema and the children watch the forest. The traces of the colonists are everywhere, but they have survived. The injured porters are cared for, the secret caches have protected the harvests, and the silent courage of the village has become an invisible but indestructible force. Yema looks around, her heart full of pride but also questions. How much suffering can a people endure before rising up? How does the memory of a people, passed down from generation to generation, become a weapon against oppression? And how many sacrifices are necessary for justice and dignity to prevail? The history of the Belgian Congo is not just that of an oppressed people, but of a silent and eternal resistance, inviting us to reflect, remember, and act.